Okay.
All right.
So, hello.
Hello.
My name is Martin. I'm here with James, Vincent McMorrow. Nice to have you here.
It's lovely to be here.
Yeah. Is this your first time in Switzerland?
No, maybe third or fourth. Here a couple of years ago for the Mantra Jazz Festival.
When did you come?
That was 2012, I think. So I actually couldn't remember, but someone earlier reminded me. So that was when we played with Arcade Fire.
Oh wow.
So that was 2012, and then I think I was back. I did a show in Zermatt, which is Switzerland, right? Or am I?
Yeah,
it is. God, I don't want to get that wrong. Yeah, for a festival called Zermatt Live, I think, and I'm pretty sure I've done my own solo show in Zurich once. I think probably in 2012 as well. But just everything becomes a blur when you're doing like 60 shows in a run.
Yeah,
so
of course.
yeah, I think this is the third or fourth time that we've been here.
So first time in Paléo.
Yes.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I mean,
Do you like the festival?
So far so good. This is the first muddy festival we've been to all summer, and it's not raining, so that's fantastic. But yeah, this is the first muddy site we've walked onto, and I completely forgot about muddy festivals. Because you get off your bus, you get in a van, you go to the stage, and I never think about bringing footwear that I could get will get wrecked. So it's like, yeah, it's been muddy but not raining, and everyone's been real lovely, and the food was incredible. And I base a lot of my festival enjoyment on good food, backstage. If it's crap food, then I'm already annoyed, but the food here was unbelievably good, so that's a good start.
Good.
Yeah.
Post-tropical.
Yeah.
I love the album.
Thank you.
And I read somewhere that you went to an island to record it outside of Texas.
Well, we went to a town outside of Texas, which I guess was... Wait, could be an island.
I might have read wrong, but first question is, why did you go there? And second question is, how did that sort of make the album, as it is?
Okay, I went there because there's a studio there that I love, that I wanted to record in, and I'd looked at a lot of other studios, and this was the one that I liked the best, and that was it. I didn't know necessarily. I've been to Texas before, but I've been to Austin, and I'm not sure if you've been to Austin, but Austin is not really, it's not representative of Texas as a whole. Like, Texas is a big, vast space, and it's a very different animal to the rest of the US. But Austin is like a little, Austin is like New York in Texas, so it's not, that was my experience up to that point. So that was it, and then got off a plane in a place called El Paso, which is right on the border with Mexico, and drove about 50 minutes outside to this big pecan farm where the studio was, and lived there for a month. But hadn't been there before. I had no idea what we were in for. We just went because the studio was great. And then to answer your second question, the environment had a huge impact on the album, in an unexpected fashion, because I hadn't gone, like I said, I didn't go for the environment, I went for the studio, thinking that, the gear was fantastic, the people were fantastic, they would always have an impact on it, but I never thought the surroundings would affect it so much. But it was such a surreal environment. It's a very unique part of the world. Culturally, it's very different to any other part of America. It's essentially Mexico, because everybody that lived in the town, Mexican workers that worked on the farm. The border was half a mile from the studio, which was a very weird experience, because it's a huge fence now. It's just very surreal and very compelling. From waking up every morning and seeing that environment, hearing those stories, had a huge part to play in how the album ended up being.
So an interesting question I just thought about, if the studio was in another place, would the album have sounded differently, since you were sort of going there just for the studio?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's sort of a different sort of vibe to it.
I think so. I mean, you're not going to find me saying these kind of things very often, but because I don't really, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but I mean, all things, I guess, in this instance do happen for a reason. I think that, I had an idea of the album I wanted to make. I'd spent 6-7 months in Ireland working it out in my own studio, where I wanted it to go sonically, what instruments I wanted to use for the most part. So I had a good core structure of the album. So had we gone to another studio, the core structure would have stayed the same. But obviously that element that I was looking for from that studio, which was that, like, there's a clock on the wall, there's money being spent, you have 30 or 40 days to make a record, and you have to go, and that's a very old school feel. That would have been universal to any studio we went to, but then that environment, that the people, the instruments that we used, like, there were unexpected pieces of equipment in the studio that I'd never thought about using that had a huge impact. We used a lot of Moog Voyager on the record, and that's not an instrument that I own. And we arrived in and it was sitting in the studio, and I was like, well, we needed something lower than the bass, so we started using a lot of sub bass, and that had a huge impact on me. So it would have been different in any other studio for sure. But I do believe that fundamentally the album would have been the album. There just would have been those pieces would have been slightly different, but the intent of the record would stay the same. So I don't think we'd be sitting here having a different conversation, if you get me, even though there would be elements of the album that would be different. I still think the structure of the songs, the ideas were there, and that is the album for me, you know.
And did you expect sort of the album to get so much acclaim from people and the public, or did you sort of expect it to sort of, I don't know, just
come and go?
Come and go,
I didn't. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I didn't expect anything, because I think that's a stupid idea. I think there's a lot of musicians in the world that just expect their albums to succeed. And I think if you expect your albums to succeed when you're making them, then you're making a shit record. And I mean, I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should make records for the sheer love of making records. Don't think about where they're going to go, what they're going to do, and just focus on making the best record you can possibly make. And then whatever happens afterwards, like, don't get me wrong, you have to, like, absolutely bust your ass and work really, really hard. But how people receive something, you can't change. After you make the record that you believe in, you can't change what's going to happen. And that's at the same time a terrifying and really liberating feeling, because as soon as I completed the record and listened to it and was happy, that was really all that mattered to me. Like, then it was like, okay, obviously I'm very ambitious and feel confident in the music that I make. And I believed and hoped that when we put it out there that people would understand it and they would get what it was. And that has been the case, I think, for the most part, and that's a lovely thing. But I think that comes down to, like I say, the fact that I don't just believe everything I do is brilliant. It takes time and effort to make something worthy of people's attention, and I'm aware of that. So hopefully that means I negate a certain amount of that, like, frivolous songwriting or making an album in 2 weeks and just thinking it's brilliant. There's a time and an effort that goes into it, and once that's there, if it's presented the right way, you have to just trust that people will understand it, and then play the best shows possible and keep hoping that every time you go back there's more people there. And it doesn't matter whether it's 100 people or it's 2,000 people, you have to just go and play the best show possible and just get in the car and get in the bus and go. That's all I was focused on. I wasn't thinking about acclaim or press response or anything like that. And I'm aware that that's there and that's incredibly important, but it's not the reason I make music. It shouldn't be the reason anybody makes music. It should be for the sheer love of making music.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So presumably you're going to start working on a new album, I hope. Do you have any plans or, like, at all? Are you started yet? I mean,
do
you want to just not talk about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, we can talk about it. I mean, to be perfectly honest, like, there's the idea of the album cycle to me feels really quite boring these days. Like, I feel like I'm here and I'm I love my life right now. I love the fact that I get to play festivals and play shows and the places are full every night, and it's compelling. I want to keep making music, and the idea of being locked into an album cycle, of saying it's going to be another year before I make another record, seems really, really sad to me. I wouldn't want to do that. I've been working with a lot of other people. There's, maybe 3 or 4 songs before the end of the year that people will hear on other people's albums that I've written and sang on, and that's a really fun experience for me. And I've been working with some amazing people, and I'm doing more and more of that. And what's the knock-on from that has been that I've been writing my own album as well, inadvertently, while working with these other people, because I'll be in the studio and I'll be writing songs and thinking about these other albums, and then I'll realize that actually I'm writing something for me, and I won't give it to them because I'll like it too much. So I have what I would consider to be a record that I can hear in my mind now, and I want to pursue it. I don't want to wait another year or 2 years to put out a record. I'm having fun now, and I want to keep going if I can. But I mean, that's me talking idly. I mean, it's a very tiring and intense lifestyle touring, you know what I mean? Like, we have shows every other day, and once we get into October, November, it's just constantly show every day until Christmas time, and then maybe back to Australia, and then back in Europe and the US again next year. So there's not a lot of time to make music. I make music on the bus when I can, and like I say, I'm loving the feeling of what I'm writing right now. It feels like with Post Tropical, I started a conversation that I always wanted to start as a musician, and I'm keen to keep that conversation going, you know, and keep making music. So we'll see what happens. I may just sleep instead because I'm totally exhausted, but you know, overriding feeling is positive and wanting to keep going, and not, like I say, not just follow the album cycle, to do whatever I feel like doing. And if I want to put out a song next week, I might do that. You know, if I want to put out an album in October, I might do that. I don't know. I just feel like doing whatever I want right now. And yeah.
So you're living the moment, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And you know, that's the beauty of making music in the modern age. Like, why are we making albums and doing 4-month build-ups to making a record? Why not go, here's an album, and then 2 days later go, there it is. And then tour and play and make videos, and you know, that's every day I wake up, I think more and more like that with my album, we announced it in September, October. We didn't release it until January. It's just like such a long time. And I think, well, why not just make music and put it out and just keep making music? Like, they used to make an album every year in the 60s and 70s. Like, and I kind of like that. Yeah, that's just me at the moment.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, I think that was it, really.
Brilliant, man.
Thanks for agreeing to do this.
No problem.
And yeah, so thank you again.
No problem.